I think it's time to put to bed and draw a line under this Ebihara style approach for producing great roots on a plastic kid's plate. I think it's time this very holy plastic plate got tossed away and we have a look and see just how it's developing after 2 years. So join me. Let's go back in time first though, shall we, and see how they were last year. Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat, and I'll say this to you straight away. You're actually going to see a year's worth here because I planted these up in February or March of 2024. I drilled 5 holes, 7 in the case of oaks, into these children's plastic plates. I then swept them on their head. I poked 5 trees through them, absolutely denuded of all branches, and then buried them. And a number of you quite rightly said, "What's Sav doing this time? He's an absolute nutter. Why didn't he just tie them all together if he wanted to get this this great combined fusion root project?" Looking back on the video, I realised it probably wasn't crystal clear. My intention was to have equally spaced trees around a group, and then the intention was that as they expand, the plastic will cut into the bark. This will then force the tree to send roots out in a radial direction above the plastic plate. And by having 5 or 6 trees there, I'd have all these roots hopefully over time knitting together until we got a big plate root system with 5 trunks coming out of it. So I took maples, I took beech, and I took oak, and I did absolutely nothing to them. And now here we are in late April, and I've got to decide whether I need to do anything at all, because of course many of you are saying, did it work? Did you get a plate load of roots all developing? Well, the answer is I'm not even going to look. I'm going to wait until probably March 2025, and then I'm going to have a little root around and see what sort of root structure we've got. So if you're interested in that, don't worry. That's going to come up in about 5 minutes time, I should imagine. Now at the time, I labelled this as a Ebihara style technique, and in many ways it is. Often what it is you put stuff on a board and you're splaying the roots out, or you'll see some people who'll put things on a tile. And again, the tree grows, expands, and then produces roots above the tile. And that means that at some point you should hopefully be able to cut all the roots from the bottom. And that will be the final intention. Love the way this beech is developing, but I'm going to keep letting it go and grow, because the more it grows, the fatter the trunks grow, and the more bite and the more likelihood of getting roots above the plate surface. Because hopefully what we're going to be seeing in about 5 or 6 minutes time is me pulling these out, flipping and cutting all the bases of these trees off the existing old root system to hopefully have instead a new radial knitted mesh pattern on top, which of course means the plate will then get thrown away. Do you know, I just broke a branch on one of my trees. Who knew that would happen? So as I look at these 3, 6, 7 oaks, all growing quite happily, I asked myself, you know, in that first year, last year, 2024, did I do anything special? Is there anything you might need to know if you want to start this? Truthfully, kept the weeds down and I fed it heavily and let them grow right out. I haven't even done any sort of pruning on them. And in fact, that brings me to what is going to happen next. Right now, spring, a year after planting these 3 experiments, potentially I may just neaten them up. Where we've got junctions here in this oak, there's 5 or 6 coming from the same point, I will reduce it down to just 2. Probably what I call maintenance pruning, because I still want these trees to be shoving everything upwards to increase girth thickness. And the only way it's going to do that is if it's got lots of growing tips. And yeah, if you're asking me whether or not I'm desperately curious as to whether or not I've got any sort of roots growing over those plates, yeah, of course I am. But in this instance, I think patience is the key. If there are young roots there, I do not want to be risking destroying them by getting these big fat fingers all wrapped around them. It's like root on rock. I always tend to leave my root on rocks, stuff like that, for 2 years. Okay, well, I've given these a clean out. I've also removed alternate leaf buds or leaf pairs on each side to start trying to form a staggered branching. I've removed everything that's low down apart from those ones, so that no energy is being wasted down there. I still want all the growth to go up, and hopefully when this gets a bit stronger I might actually be able to wire that upwards. Maples, I'll keep them so they get the morning sunlight, and then pretty shady in the afternoon. So I did do some things with the beech and the oak, so let's have a look and see what I did with those. Now the little beech group, they actually had 1 or 2 surface roots, which is good. Again, I've removed everything lower down, and what I'm looking for is all the growth to be obviously coming up in the canopy. I have, for 2 of these, added just a little bit of wire. Rather than drooping over, I want these heading upwards, and the only thing is you can't stick the wire too far down because there's a plastic plate. Beech doesn't mind the sun as much, probably quite happy to have this in a spot that gets normal sun through the day. And the oaks, well, this is probably the one where I've wired a lot more of the branches. I've put in a lot more bends because otherwise these things will absolutely stick straight. Now, if you know oaks, and I've got lots of really good videos on oaks, you'll know that all over these things you've got lots of bud points. So, you know, for the future of this, I'm quite happy to just put some movement in, but this can end up being cut back quite a lot once I've established that root map that I'm so desperate to obtain. I'm quite happy to leave little stuff down here because these grow slower. Oak, so long as it's in free draining soil, I'm happy to keep it in the full sun. They love the heat, so these will sit in the middle of the garden and enjoy the spring, summer weather. Do you know, it's the 25th of August, and I wasn't going to come back and do another update, but I thought, I kept looking at how wonderfully this growth has happened, certainly with the oaks. These are so solid in the bases here. I just need to do a bit of weeding, but apart from that, you know, am I going to prune anything at all? No. I did apply a little bit of wire here. Do want to make sure it's not scarring, but there's loads, even close in, lots of little bud growth and stuff like that. And I'm absolutely over the moon with this, certainly the oak. And I think definitely in 2026 we're going to be looking at the roots in this to see whether or not we've got that mesh. Should we have a look at the other 2 though, because they're just as impressive. Nice, solid. You know, that's what I'm looking at in both of these. In fact, all 3 of these, to feel that base has really meshed together, and it certainly looks like it. Do you remember I've wired a few of these out, and again just check, make sure the wire isn't biting in anywhere. Potentially got a little bit under here which I might need to watch out, but honestly, once they're into nice pots, these are going to look absolutely fantastic. Again, do I need to do anything? No, just going to leave this. I want all the energy to be into growing, shoots, branch thickening. But the best to come is, of course, the maples. Isn't it fantastic? Look at all this lovely growth from the maples. And you know, yeah, I know that eventually I'm going to be cutting this right back down. And that will be something to see. But first of all, we just want all the energy going into that production of that big plate root that I'm trying to get here. Lovely, healthy growth. Absolutely love it. And I think this is going to be a wonderful project, certainly in 2026. Which I suppose now brings us back now to the 3rd of March and this holy plastic plate. I've been putting it off, but we need to start digging around just across the surface carefully and at least see if we're starting to get that mesh of interlocking new roots. Because if we do, I have to make some pretty bold choices and decisions. But first of all, let's have a little dig around. And do you know what? Let's go for the Japanese maple. We all love maple, and I think that's going to be the one that's going to prove the most successful after 2 years. Now, the reason why I'm nervous is because what needs to have happened is the thickness of these trunks, which have produced such great big shoots, needs to be thick enough that it's actually bigger than the hole I create in the plastic. And, you know, I look at that and I do wonder, because once that is smaller than that trunk, that's when we hopefully get some root spread. So I either dig around here and have a little look down and see what can be seen, or I just pull the whole lot out of this and do it a lot easier like that. And I think that is probably the way forward. So what are we going to find when we start looking around? Now I am very aware that when I do this I need to be careful, because what I don't want to do is, if there is some surface roots there, is actually break or destroy what's developing. I can definitely see some now, which is encouraging. What I'm really wanting to see right now is just how thick they are in comparison to that hole. And I'll say now, there was a number of people when I did the original video, which you'll find in the description, or indeed up there, who said, what on earth are you doing? Why don't I just bind them together with tape, or do a common fusion to them? And I said I wanted to produce probably quite an artificial circular pattern, which I've done here, with equidistant. And yeah, I know it's false, but that's what I wanted to produce. So that's why I chose to do it. You can see clearly there's loads and loads of healthy root growth, which you'd expect. What I can say already is that it's definitely below the line of the plastic kid's plate. These are potentially going to be the roots I'm going to start cutting away, because what I have to do is try and get the trees to rely not on this, but on these thin, and there's definitely some thin feeder roots coming over the top. It's just a matter of how many and to what depth they are. So in the same way that I would do any sort of repot, I'm just going to slowly tease out and see what's above that pot or that plate. I think the encouraging thing, I know it's difficult to see, but these roots here are all above the plate, and there's quite a number of them. That's good. I just need enough that I can cut what's beneath. So I'm going to continue to work on this, probably until it's all exposed and all the soil's gone. See you in a mo. Right, well, I'm going to show my mildly excited face, because even as I've sort of lifted and separated, you can definitely see the two different levels. These here are the roots that have come from the bottom, but here around it you can definitely see there's an equal spread of roots. I'm saying 360 degrees. You know what? I am so confident. Guess what I'm going to do next? All these roots that have been helping the development, the only thing I do have to be sure of is that in my enthusiasm I don't end up blunting my blades because there's still stones in there. Anyway, let me continue to cut through that lump. The other thing to be aware of is I don't know how tightly these are going to be above the plate, but do you know what? Let's see what we've got. As I say, been slowly working around using these branch splitters. I suppose the big question people will ask me is, am I going to take the plate off? And the short answer is no. And I'll tell you why in a sec. Let me just, what I want to do is basically reduce that entire lump there so it's forced to develop the rest of those roots that you can see there. Well, clearly, as I say, I'm over the moon. This has been a total success. But it's a bit like when you do roots on rock. You know, you see that initial gripping there, but what you want is it then to push on further before you really go for the hard thing of taking the rock out of the soil. So as you can see here, got all these lovely roots here that are going beyond the margin of the plastic plate. And all I'm going to do is make them nice and clear. I'm not going to play around up here. But what I want to do is actually prune these back, because I don't need roots coming all the way out here, do I? I want to be able to safely take my and follow the line of the plate. Like this. And do you know what's so encouraging? Definitely got 360-degree rotational coverage, which is what the purpose was of this in the first place. Now, as I say, I don't need to separate this yet. I want this very flat. I mean, look how flat that root base is going to be. That's going to produce your pancake for this 5-group clump. I just need to basically put that into a pot, cover over more with soil, and let these roots continue to thicken and grow out. But you know what? Started 2 years ago. Looks like we're going to get some good results. Now the temptation would be to try and get it into a nice pot and get it all set up. But you know what? It's not ready for that. It also needs a lot of space. So I'm going to pull back my frustration, and I'm basically going to put it back in that. The difference is now I've just put a layer of big, thick 1.5 centimeter lacquer balls on the bottom. I'm going to take this, and yeah, you know what the miserable thing is? You basically just don't get to see it. But what I want to be able to do is push that in, and then knowing that I've got that 360 fine weave of roots, cover it back up. You know, the air basket, the pond basket made such a wonderful, the pond basket itself worked really well. Clearly those roots got that good bit of aeration. So all I'm going to do is cover it over, fertilise well, and let it continue to develop and grow. By keeping the plate on there, I keep it with its fixed structure, and I reckon probably next year, this time next year, I will be able to actually remove that plate entirely, and that's the point when I can put it into a nice light blue shallow pot, already having that upper root system we want. I may well have a look and prune some of these back, but I want to go and have a look and see how the oak and how the beech are doing, because certainly the maple, big success. Okay, well, buoyed up with the success of the maples, let's have a look at the oaks. I'm not going to go through any of the process you've just seen. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. When I get to the point where I can make a decision about whether I can separate those bottom roots, I'll come back to you. But again, these are all pretty healthy. They've grown thick. Let's see what's going on down beneath the plate. Okay, well, no surprises really. I didn't expect the oak to be as vigorous on top, but I've definitely got some roots that have come from the top, but I've got a massive amount underneath. But again, we've got enough roots on the top that I'm going to take as much off the bottom as I can. I won't play around too much with the plate because I think they'd fall apart. There's not quite the same mat up there that we saw with the maple. But yeah, they're not massive trees, so I think they can lose 85% of their root structure. Come back to you when it's done. So say if you have a look underneath there, got a great big mat of really thick, heavy roots. They're actually going to be quite difficult to remove, I think, but taking away as much as I can. And if you look on the top there, you can see there is a fine weave of roots on top. Do you know what? I don't think these trees are going to demand much. They're probably going to sulk a bit. Do the same thing again, just sit this in. The roots that are there, just spread them out, then bury it back in. And I would imagine, all things being equal, that yeah, we might find that some of this growth doesn't shoot off, but I think these will be absolutely fine. There we go, pruned back a little bit. Should we get the beech and have a look and see what that looks like? And surprisingly enough, the only difference here is that the thickness of the roots beneath are not quite as solid in there, so I don't want to take as much away from the base. I'm competing with the guy across the garden. He knows why I'm doing bonsai. I mean, you've definitely got a nice weave of roots there, and they're fine. They certainly wouldn't hold the tree together if I tried to rip any more of that base out. That's the beeching, and just a little bit of cutting, and then leave them for a year. So there we go. I've pruned back the maples. I'm less bothered. I'll do the beech in a minute. But what's going to happen now? Well, we've waited 2 years. I think we're going to be waiting another couple of years before we'll be able to really pull those out and get the plastic container off. Maybe the plastic plate will come off next year. And if you want to see that, you know what you need to do. Hit the old subscribe button. Make sure you got bell notifications. I know YouTube doesn't show stuff all the time, but if this is the sort of stuff that interests you, it definitely will come up again in spring of 2027. I have a feeling that's when they're going to have pots for them as well. It's been a success, no doubt about it. 2 years, and credit has to go. I cannot remember for the life of me which bonsai creator I saw do this 5-6 years ago, but it's a fantastic success. This is how you can achieve plated roots, or one of the methods at least. Certainly the maple show the fastest and quickest acceptance of that sort of process. They love to put out roots if they're healthy. Both the oak and the beech have already started developing that fine network. All that needs to happen now is they need to grow in vigor. Let this stuff continue to grow pretty well unabated. The only thing I'll make sure I do is avoid any potential issues with 2s turning into 3s, into 4s. I do not want to create any inverse taper further up the tree. So that's about the only sort of pruning I'll do. And I'm really looking forward to, well, waiting another year, because I think I need to start looking for some decent pots for these. Don't you? Anyway, if you want to see how this project all started, that's the video. Apart from that, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.